My name is Madison Cole. I'm 33 years old, and the night everything fell apart was supposed to be the night I celebrated everything I had built with my own two hands. My first home. My first space that wasn't borrowed, shared, or negotiated. My first real proof that the endless late nights, the burnout cycles, the office politics, the tight budgets, and the constant emotional labor I carried had led me somewhere solid. But instead of champagne, music, and the warm feeling of possibility, I walked straight into a nightmare wrapped in wrapping paper and fake smiles. My townhouse, my pride, was filled with boxes that weren't mine. Not one or two, dozens. Suitcases shoved into corners, shoes littering my entryway, children's toys tossed across the hardwood floor I had refinished myself. A giant vanity mirror leaning against the wall with a sticky note that said, "For our room." Our room. That was the moment my spine stiffened. Something felt wrong in the air. So wrong that even the string lights Stacy had helped me hang felt like they were flickering with unease. People stood in small clusters, whispering, glancing at me, then looking away. My neighbors. Co-workers of my mother's, some distant relatives who had no business being in my home, sipping wine like they were at an open house. And right in the middle of the crowd, my mother, smiling like she had just closed on the property herself. "Madison," she sang, waving me over with a glass of rosé. "Everyone's been waiting." Waiting for what? I hadn't even made it to the kitchen before my stomach dropped again. On the dining table, my dining table, sat a crisp folder from the property management company. My eyes scanned the heading, and ice crawled down my spine. Lease amendment, tenant additions, Ryan Cole and family. Signature, Madison E. Cole, forged. My name, my brother's name, my home, and none of it real. I looked at my mother, the woman who raised me, sacrificed for me, scolded me, loved me, manipulated me, and taught me that family comes before everything, even myself. "Mom," I said, my voice low, "what is this?" She didn't even flinch. She just took a sip of rosé, smiled sweetly, and said, "It's what family does." And in that moment, I knew this was not an accident. This was a plan that had been unfolding quietly while I was too busy working overtime to see it. And I felt something inside me shift, not crack, not break, but shift into something harder, colder, and much more dangerous. That shift was the beginning of the end. People love to talk about Midwestern family values: community, kindness, generosity, humility, and the sacred bond of family. But no one talks about the darker side of it: the expectations, the guilt, the silent debts you inherit just by being born the eldest daughter. Growing up, my mother didn't believe in asking for help. She believed in demanding it, especially from me. I was the responsible one, the achiever, the girl who brought home straight A's while my brother brought home suspension notices. Ryan, despite his screw-ups, was the golden boy. I remember once he dented my mom's car and cried about how stressed he was. She hugged him, told him everything would be fine, and then demanded that I pay for the repairs because you're the only one with savings. I was 14. That should have been the first red flag. But when you grow up inside dysfunction, you don't call it dysfunction. You call it normal. As adults, nothing changed. I worked my way up in marketing, spending years being the fixer, the yes girl, the one who could take on 12 projects at once because Madison's strong enough to handle it. I bought my house with my own money, every cent earned. I didn't ask for help, didn't take loans, didn't lean on family. My mother, meanwhile, spent years talking about how she dreamed of a large family home she could pass down to future generations. When she saw mine, she said the words that still sting. "I'm so glad you finally bought something the whole family can benefit from." Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "You deserve this." Just another claim, another expectation, another wedge. When she pressured me to let Ryan temporarily stay in the spare room because he was behind on rent again, I said no. Politely, then firmly, then with boundaries that should have meant something. Apparently, they didn't. For women like me, women who are raised to give until they disappear, there's always a moment when you realize you are not a daughter to your family. You are a resource. And they expected me to be their housing plan, their safety net, their backup, their bailout. They just never expected me to fight back. But that night, my housewarming night, was the moment I realized something terrifying. They didn't see me as a person with a life. They saw me as a solution to theirs. 2 days before the party, my best friend Stacy called me while I was in the middle of preparing a presentation for a big client pitch. "Madison," she said, barely whispering, "you're not going to like what I'm about to tell you." She sent me screenshots, and everything spiraled. My mother had been telling the neighbors that my townhouse was meant for the whole family, especially Ryan because he's got children to think about. I don't know what part of that enraged me more, the entitlement or the lie. I told Stacy I'd call her back and opened the management portal on my laptop. My hands were shaking so hard I mistyped my password twice. And there it was. A digital trail of betrayal, a tenant update request, an email chain including my mother and sister-in-law, a forged signature, a note, "Family priority, approved." I felt heat rise up my neck, the kind that comes when anger mixes with humiliation. I forwarded the documents to my lawyer, Lawrence, who called me immediately. "Madison, this is fraud," he said. "Flat out fraud." Hearing it out loud didn't help. It made it worse. I pulled up my security cameras next. Honestly, I didn't expect to see anything. I installed them mostly to watch my dog back when I had one. But the moment the feed loaded, my breath caught. There was my brother, dragging a suitcase across my living room floor. There was my sister-in-law, deciding where to put a mirror. There was my mother, folding clothes in my bedroom like she had already claimed the space. And then came the audio. My cousin's voice. "Are you sure Madison will agree to this?" My mother. "She doesn't have to. She's always done what the family needs." My brother. "This is perfect. We'll be settled just in time for the kids to start school." Settled. In my home. Without my permission. I felt something inside me go cold. Not numb, cold. Women like me don't go numb. We get quiet. We calculate. I replayed the footage for hours, cataloging every detail, every word, every smug expression. Then, slowly, deliberately, I began forming a plan. Not revenge, not punishment, self-defense. That night, after watching hours of footage showing my family moving into my house, I realized something sharp and painful. They truly believed I wouldn't stop them. Not because they misunderstood me, not because they thought I'd approve, but because they were used to the old version of me, the version who rearranged her entire life to solve everyone else's problems, The version who worked overtime so my brother could borrow money again. The version who canceled vacations because my mother needed help with bills. The version who accepted being treated like the replacement spouse, the emotional sponge, the reliable one. But staring at the camera feed, seeing my mother lift my pillow, my brother dropping his duffel bag on my floor, my sister-in-law taking selfies in my bathroom, something inside me hardened. And once that part of me clicked into place, there was no going back. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at my phone, and asked myself the question every woman with a draining family eventually faces. What if the only way to save my life is to let them lose their hold on it? My mother had texted me earlier. "Sweetheart, get here early tomorrow. The house needs to look perfect before guests arrive." Perfect. For her plan. Not my party. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Nadine, the real estate agent I trusted. She was still awake. God bless her, she always was. And she listened without interrupting as I explained everything. When I finished, she exhaled sharply. "Madison, you're not safe in this situation emotionally or legally. If your brother claims tenancy, this becomes a nightmare." "I know." "And if your mother forged documents, you need to get ahead of it." "I know." There was a long silence before she finally asked, "Do you want to sell the house?" I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of years pressing down on me. I'd worked so hard for that home. I'd walked through every room imagining peace, quiet, and freedom. I'd placed the closing keys on my palm and cried from pride. But pride doesn't protect you from family who see your success as their entitlement. "Sell it," I whispered, "as fast as you can, but quietly." "Are you sure?" "I'm done fighting for something that became a battlefield." Nadine switched into business mode instantly. "Then we move at dawn. I'll call a cash buyer I trust." And for the first night in months, I actually slept. Because the war wasn't happening tomorrow. It was already over. The next morning, I didn't go to my house. I went to Nadine's office instead. She already had paperwork waiting, along with coffee strong enough to wake the dead. "This is a power of attorney form," she explained, sliding it to me. "If things get chaotic, I'll handle the sale legally, even without you present." I signed. "This is the rapid sale disclosure. Lower price, faster sale." I signed that too. "And here's the contract for a private listing. No MLS, no public announcement. No one will know until the deal is done." I signed again. With each signature, a weight lifted, a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. A lifetime of unspoken expectations loosened from my shoulders. By 11 a.m., Nadine received a message. "Cash buyer confirmed," she said. "He can close in 2 hours." 2 hours. I sat there in disbelief. Years of work, months of burnout, weeks of planning my housewarming, all about to vanish in one swift, liberating motion. "You're doing the right thing," Nadine said softly. "This isn't defeat. It's escape." Then she placed the final document in front of me. "When you sign this, Madison, the house is no longer yours." I picked up the pen, breathed deeply, and signed. When I finished, my phone buzzed with a new voicemail from my mother. "We need more chairs. Bring yours. Don't be late." I deleted it without listening to the rest. Minutes later, Nadine's phone chimed. She glanced at the message, then looked up at me with a small, proud smile. "Congratulations. You're free. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe fully. But freedom came with one last storm, the housewarming party, and I planned to walk into it like the woman I had become, not the one they expected. I parked my car a block away from the townhouse that, as of 3 hours ago, no longer belonged to me. People overflowed into the front yard. Kids played on the sidewalk. Neighbors held plates of potluck casseroles. It looked like a scene from a family sitcom, a sitcom where the punchline was me. I walked toward the front door slowly, not out of fear, but because I wanted to take in the moment, the final moment of being the version of myself who allowed this. Inside, the energy shifted. My mother saw me first. "Madison!" she announced dramatically, using the hostess voice she reserved for PTA meetings and church bake sales. "Everyone, she's here!" Her eyes sparkled with triumph. Behind her, my brother leaned against the wall like he owned the place. My sister-in-law fussed with decorative pillows on the couch, my couch, and took yet another selfie. My cousin Devin stood in the corner, uncomfortable and quiet. I stepped into the center of the room. Everyone watched. My mother lifted her arms theatrically. "As you all know, this home will be a blessing to the entire family," she said. "My children supporting each other, living together." I cut her off. "Mom," I said calmly, "stop talking." Her smile faltered, but she ignored my tone. "Sweetheart, not now." "No," I repeated. "Now." The crowd shifted nervously. I reached into my bag and pulled out the thick sale folder Nadine had printed for me. Signed, sealed, witnessed. I looked at my mother, my brother, the guests, and then said, "This isn't my house anymore. I sold it this morning." Silence. Pure, stunned silence. My mother blinked. "What? What are you talking about?" she whispered. My brother straightened up, confusion turning quickly into anger. "You what?" I held the papers up for the room to see. "It's done. The buyer takes possession tomorrow. None of you live here." A woman in the crowd gasped. Someone recorded. Someone else started whispering loudly. My sister-in-law's face drained of color. "But we moved our things," she sputtered. "My clothes are upstairs." "That sounds like a problem," I said evenly. "A problem for you, not for me." My brother pushed off the wall, red-faced. "You can't just sell a house we were supposed to live in." "It wasn't yours to begin with," I replied. My mother stepped forward, trembling. "Madison," she said softly, "why would you do this to your family?" I looked at her with a clarity I had never felt before. "Because you tried to steal my life," I said, "and I'm done giving you the pieces." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Devin, my cousin, looked away, guilt stamped on his features. Stacy, bless her, had arrived just in time to witness the explosion. She slipped through the crowd and stood quietly behind me as backup. Everyone watched. Everyone listened. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of being the villain in their story, because I finally realized they were never going to cast me as anything else. The housewarming crowd stood frozen, holding plates, drinks, cameras, and judgment. I felt strangely calm. Not triumphant, not spiteful, just done. My mother stared at me like she was looking at a stranger, but maybe she was. Maybe, for the first time in my life, She was finally seeing the version of me that didn't bend. "Madison," she said slowly, "you're being emotional. We can fix this. Just tell the buyer you made a mistake." "No," I cut in. "I didn't make a mistake. I made a choice." She blinked rapidly, processing. She had never, not once, heard me say no without giving her hope it would become yes with enough guilt. I continued. "This house was never for the family. It wasn't yours to control. It wasn't Ryan's backup plan. It wasn't built to save anyone's marriage or bank account. It was mine." A hush fell over the room. My brother's jaw tightened. "We needed this, Mads." "And I needed boundaries," I said. "But you only respected boundaries that benefited you." He stepped closer until we were almost face to face. "You sold our home." "The home you tried to steal," I corrected sharply. My sister-in-law grabbed his arm as though she could anchor him, but her eyes flashed with accusation. "You blindsided us," she hissed. "We put so much effort into making this place feel like home." "You mean my place," I replied. "The one you photographed for your Instagram captioned New Beginnings? The one you moved into without asking? The one you claimed online before I even had the chance to finish unpacking my own toothbrush?" Her face turned scarlet. Gasps scattered around us. My mother raised her chin, rallying one last attempt at control. "You're overreacting. Families share. Families support each other. This is what real families do." "No," I said gently. "This is what you do. You take. You assume. You manipulate. You rewrite the narrative so you never have to face what you've done." Her mouth opened again, but I held up a hand. I wasn't finished. "All my life, I've given you everything you asked for. My time, my money, my energy, my sanity, and you never once considered how much it cost me." Her breath hitched, but she didn't deny it. "You expected me to sacrifice my future because Ryan mismanaged his present. You assumed I'd bail him out forever. You saw my success as your safety net." I stepped back, letting my words hit the air. "But I'm not your safety net. I'm not your retirement plan. I'm not your emotional punching bag. And I am not your property." Stacy whispered behind me, "Damn, finally." My mother's hand clutched her chest. "You're choosing strangers over your own family?" "No," I said. "I'm choosing myself over people who never chose me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, some whispered. Some looked uncomfortable because they recognized themselves in the story, on my side or hers. My brother pointed furiously at the stack of boxes in the corner. "What are we supposed to do now?" I shrugged. "Move them out. Today. The new owner arrives tomorrow." Silence again. "What if we refuse?" he demanded. Lawrence, my lawyer, stepped forward from the back of the room. He had arrived unnoticed, like a quiet shadow. "Then," he said calmly, "it becomes trespassing, and the new owner will handle that with police involvement if necessary." My brother swallowed hard. My mother paled again. My sister-in-law clutched her purse like someone had threatened her firstborn. For the first time, they understood the game was over, and they had lost. Back when this first started, when Stacy told me about my mother's rumors, when I saw the forged documents, when I watched the camera feed of their invasion, I didn't immediately know what to do. But I knew what not to do. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to justify myself. I wasn't going to explain my feelings to people who saw my feelings as obstacles. I was going to be strategic. Women raised in dysfunctional families have survival skills no one teaches. We learn them the hard way. We learn to observe, to predict, to prepare for the emotional storm before it arrives. So when the forged lease appeared, I didn't confront anyone. When the cameras showed them moving in, I didn't scream or cry. When the whispers spread across the neighborhood, I didn't rush to correct them. I gathered proof. I made calls. I calculated exactly what they expected and planned to do the opposite. My family predicted I'd show up to the party smiling, apologizing, smoothing things over. I'd be embarrassed to make a scene. I'd avoid conflict. I'd do anything to keep peace. They built a plan around the version of me they knew, but they didn't build a plan around the version of me they created by betraying me. The version of me that was exhausted. The version of me that had spent her entire life cleaning up their messes. The version that had finally snapped in silence. When I signed the house sale contract, it wasn't impulsive. It was the cleanest exit, the only exit. If I fought to keep the house, they would squat. If I confronted them, they would gaslight. If I kicked them out, they would claim tenancy rights. If I reasoned with them, they would twist it into guilt. Selling the house ended the war before they even realized there was one. And as I stood there watching them slowly process their defeat, I didn't feel vindictive. I felt light. Not joyful, not relieved, just weightless. The burden I had carried since childhood was no longer mine. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. "You humiliated us." I shook my head gently. "No, Mom. You humiliated yourselves by assuming you could take what wasn't yours." She wiped her eyes, though no tears fell. "People are staring," she whispered. "They should," I said. "They witnessed exactly what you were doing." My sister-in-law gathered her things hastily. "We'll leave," she snapped. "But don't come crying to us when you need help someday." Stacy let out a very audible laugh. "Help? From you? Doing what? Stealing her next house?" The room snickered. My sister-in-law stormed off. My brother stayed frozen, his face shifting rapidly between anger, fear, and disbelief. "You blindsided us," he whispered. "No," I corrected him softly. "You blinded yourselves." And for the first time in his life, he had no comeback. Devin approached me quietly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't agree with them. I just didn't know how to stop it." "I know," I said. "But silence still helps the wrong side." He nodded, ashamed. Then I walked toward the door. No dramatic exit, no yelling, no last words. Just the sound of my heels on the hardwood floor that was no longer mine. As I stepped outside, the cool Omaha air hit my face, and a single thought crossed my mind. This is what freedom feels like at the beginning. Quiet, heavy, and necessary. I didn't expect the fallout to happen as fast as it did. The next morning, while I was sipping mediocre hotel coffee and scrolling through apartment listings, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Texts, voicemails, notifications, missed calls. Not from my family, from my neighbors. Apparently, someone at the housewarming had uploaded clips of the confrontation on Facebook, then TikTok, Then some local Omaha gossip page. Videos spread fast. My mother proclaiming ownership, me announcing the sale, my sister-in-law snapping, my brother shouting, the documents waving in the air like the final act of a courtroom drama. By noon, the comment sections were in full wildfire mode. Good for her. Families like that drain you until you're empty. She did what she had to do. How entitled do you have to be to move into someone's house without permission? This is why boundaries matter. There were a few people defending my family, usually women who'd been conditioned the same way, but mostly the internet saw what I had always been too close to see. My mother wasn't the victim. My brother wasn't helpless. I wasn't selfish. I was the only one who had been honest. Meanwhile, the townhouse my family thought they could take over became the epicenter of their undoing. The new owner arrived the next morning, early, polite, professional. My family had barely begun moving their things out. Lawrence supervised the transition to prevent any misunderstandings, which was his polite attorney word for conflict, aggression, or another explosion. According to him, my brother tried to negotiate. "This is temporary," he insisted. "We just need a bit more time. You don't understand our situation." The buyer, a man who looked like he had no interest in drama, simply repeated, "The property is legally mine. Vacate." My mother tried a different tactic. "We're just a family trying to stay together," she pleaded. But desperation doesn't work when the law is clear. By afternoon, everything of theirs was forced out onto the lawn. My sister-in-law cried. My brother swore. My mother collapsed onto a lawn chair like the world had betrayed her. But the world hadn't betrayed her. She had betrayed me. She had banked on my silence, and silence is the most expensive currency in a dysfunctional family. Once it runs out, the whole structure collapses. That weekend, they moved into a cramped two-bedroom apartment on the far side of town. Word spread quickly. Omaha is small enough that gossip spreads like humidity in July. When my mother returned to church on Sunday, people whispered. Not loudly, but loudly enough. She hated that. She thrived on social admiration. Without it, she shriveled. Ryan struggled financially. His wife blamed him for everything. They fought constantly, loud enough that the new neighbors called the police twice. Their marriage, once held together by entitlement and lack of options, fractured under real responsibility. And Devin, the cousin who had whispered concerns but done nothing, packed his bags and left the state. He sent me one message before he deleted his account. "I'm sorry. You were right." I didn't respond. Some apologies are acknowledgments, not repairs. I didn't move into anything big, not right away. I chose a modest one-bedroom on the edge of a different neighborhood. Quiet, clean, filled with young professionals and older retirees who minded their business and watered their plants. On my first night there, I sat on the bare floor with takeout and stared at the empty walls, listening to the hum of the fridge. And for the first time in my life, the silence didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like freedom. There were no footsteps I wasn't expecting, no voices telling me to do more, no demands disguised as love, no guilt woven into casual conversation. It was just me, my things, my air, my peace. I bought furniture slowly, intentionally. A second-hand couch, a small dining table, a lamp that cast warm light over the corner where my laptop sat, a fluffy rug that felt soft under my feet. I even bought a plant. Her name was Rosie. She was a peace lily. It felt symbolic. My job, ironically, flourished once I wasn't drowning in emotional labor. My creativity returned. I landed 2 new clients. I woke up without a knot in my chest. I went to sleep without rehearsing arguments in my mind. Therapy helped too. My therapist looked at me during our first session and said something that lodged itself in my heart. You didn't lose a family. You ended a cycle. I cried. Not because I was sad, because I finally understood the difference. Healing isn't pretty. It isn't linear. It isn't inspirational quotes and soft music. Healing is blocking your mother's number for a week because you can't handle another guilt trip, then unblocking it because you feel bad, then blocking it again because the message she sends confirms she hasn't changed. Feeling guilty for moving away from the family roles you never agreed to. Feeling proud for the exact same reason. Staring out the window at night wondering if breaking the cycle makes you a villain. Realizing eventually that surviving the cycle makes you a miracle. Some nights, I caught myself imagining what would have happened if I had let them stay, if I had allowed the takeover, if I had sacrificed everything for the 1,000th time to keep the peace. It's terrifying to admit, but I know exactly what would have happened. I would have disappeared inside my own life. My home would have been theirs. My money would have become theirs. My sanity would have been swallowed whole. My dreams would have been postponed until they expired. And they still would have told me I wasn't doing enough. Sometimes freedom is loud. Mine was silent, steady, heavy. A slow unpeeling of all the layers they forced me to wear. And beneath it all, I found someone I hadn't met before. Myself. About 3 months after moving, I wrote a letter to my mother. Not to send, but to say what needed to be said. Mom, I know you believe you were helping Ryan, but you weren't. You were enabling him while punishing me for being strong. You taught me to be responsible, but then punished me for it by giving me everyone else's responsibilities. You called it love. It wasn't. Love doesn't break the person who holds the family together. I hope someday you understand that I didn't walk away because I hated you. I walked away because I wanted to live. I folded the letter and slid it into my journal. It wasn't for her. It was for me. Because healing doesn't require confrontation. It requires acknowledgement. 6 months after selling the townhouse, I stood at the window of my small apartment and watched the first snow of the season fall in soft, silent sheets. I held a mug of hot coffee. My life was quiet. My peace was consistent. My boundaries were real. I no longer jumped when my phone buzzed. I no longer rearranged my schedule to fix problems I didn't cause. I no longer apologized for wanting space, rest, or respect. I even took a weekend trip for the first time in years. Alone. It wasn't lonely. It was liberating. I journaled. I watched the ocean. I reminded myself that life is allowed to be gentle. When I returned home, Rosie, the plant, had bloomed. I laughed. Maybe I was blooming too. If you are reading this, especially if you are a woman between 25 and 45 who feels exhausted, invisible, taken for granted, or trapped in family expectations, this story is for you. Not because you need to sell your house, not because you need to cut ties, not because you need a dramatic confrontation at a party, but because you deserve to know this truth. You are allowed to choose yourself, even if your family doesn't understand, especially if they don't. Choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival. It's healing. It's reclaiming a life you were never meant to sacrifice. Your worth isn't measured by how much you endure. Your strength isn't defined by how much you can carry. Your value isn't determined by how much you give away. You are not a safety net. You are not a bank account. You are not a second chance for people who waste their first. You are not a dumping ground for other people's failures. You are a human being with needs, dreams, and a future, and you are allowed to protect it. Even if they call you selfish, even if they punish you with silence, even if they rewrite the story to make you the villain, walk away anyway, because the life you save might finally be your own.